Okay, so in this lesson, we're going to continue our discussion on solving linear equations. In the problems that you're going to see, though, in those linear equations, you're going to be using the distributive property in all of those. So let's discuss the idea of the distributive property. So the distributive property. So, in addition to the properties of equality that you learned about, the addition property of equality, subtraction property of equality, the multiplication division, another property that's going to be very important for you when solving equations, and in this case linear equations, is the distributive property. So the distributive property says this: if 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 you have this situation, A times B plus C. So if you have some monomial times B plus C, and here I have 2, but you could have a bunch of terms here. But basically, you have a multiplication problem, because when you read this, this reads A times B plus C. So the distributive property, you have a sum of terms here. So you see there's a plus sign. All right, you have a sum of terms, and each of those terms are being multiplied by 8. That's what that's saying. So you'll see students do this when using distributive property. They will use an arrow to remind themselves that each of those terms have to be multiplied by 8, by that monomial that's on the outside. And so this becomes A times B plus A times B plus, see that plus sign, A times C. All right? Oops, sorry, A times C. And so that's the distributive property. So that's what you're going to use. So for example, if you have 7 times x plus 3, example 1, 7 times x plus 3, then you can clear the parentheses, clear parentheses. So you can simplify this. So when you simplify, you're basically going to clear the parentheses. So I can simplify this by using the distributive property. So I have 7 times x plus, and then 7 times 3 is 21. All right. Now those are expressions; those are not equations. So keep in mind we're about to do those, but I'm just telling you how, reminding you about the distributive property. And then in number 2, if you have negative 2 times 3x minus 5, let's say, then if you distribute, if you clear the parentheses, if you simplify this by clearing the parentheses, you have negative 2 times 3x is a negative 6x, and then a negative 2 times a negative 5, a negative times a negative, is a positive 10. And so that's that expression. And notice I am just using 2 terms inside the parentheses, but it doesn't have to be that. For example, you could have this 5 times 2x minus 3y plus 7, let's say. And so if you distribute the 5, notice there are 3 terms in here. Each of those have to be multiplied by 5. And so you get 5 times 2x is 10x. 5 times a negative 3y is a negative 15y. And then 5 times a positive 7 is a positive 35. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and start working on solving equations. So let's write this as number 1. So number 1, now the directions will say solve each equation. Solve each equation. All right, and so, and notice that these are going to be linear equations, so it's not going to be that difficult. All right, so again, notice we're going to use these steps just like we did in the previous lesson. So step 1 is to simplify both sides of the equation. You're going to clear the parentheses using the distributive property. You're going to combine like terms. If fraction exists, sometimes it is easier to multiply both sides by the LCD first. And then you're going to collect all variable terms on one side, all constant terms on the other. That's steps 2 and 3. And then step 4, you're going to either use the multiplication division property of equality to get the variable term equal to 1. The coefficient of the variable term equal to 1. Okay? All right, so let's do number 1. So number 1, we have 5 times x minus 3 is equal to 45. So 5 times x minus 3 equals to 45. Okay, so I want you to notice in step 1, you want to simplify both sides. So you do have parentheses. So since I have parentheses, I want to use the distributive property to get rid of those parentheses. All right, so whenever you have equations that have parentheses in it, use the distributive property first. So so everything inside the parentheses is being multiplied by 5. So those two terms. So x and a negative 3. So 5 times x is 5x. 5 times a negative 3 is a negative 15 equal 45. And now that looks like those simple equations you did in the previous lesson. So we're going to get the 5x by itself first. So right now I'm subtracting 15. The opposite is to add 15. And then combine like terms. I get 5x plus 0 is 5x equal, and then 45 plus 15 is 60. And then to get x by itself, we're going to, right now multiplying x by 5, so I'm going to divide both sides by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1, so x is equal to, then use your calculator if you have to, 60 divided by 5 is 12. So that's our solution. So the value of x, when you're solving an equation, you find the solution. The value of x that makes this equation a true statement is 12. All right, and you can check. So if you want to check x equal 12, you go back to the original. Always go back to the original. And here's my original right here. And where we see the variable x, I'm going to substitute 12. So I get 5 times 12 minus 3 equals 45. And the inside the parentheses, I'm going to do parentheses first. 12 minus 3 is 9. And then so I get 5 times 9, and 5 times 9 is 45, which is what this is. Okay? All right, let's go to number 2. So number 2, I have negative 3 times 2x minus 1 is equal to 21. So negative 3 times 2x minus 1 equals 21. So remember that whenever you have parentheses, the first thing is to clear the parentheses. Step 1, simplify both sides of the equation as much as possible before you do any of these other steps. So I'm going to distribute. So negative 3 times 2x is a oops, I did not mean to put an equal sign. So that's a negative 6x. A negative 3, now be careful with your signs. A negative 3 times a negative 1 is a positive 3 equal 21. And now that looks like this right here. So now I'm going to do steps 2, 3, and 4. All right, so next thing I'm going to do is I need to try and get that negative 6x by itself. So right now I'm adding 3, so the opposite is to subtract 3 from both sides. Notice I'm aligning my like terms. And then when I combine my like terms, I get negative 6x is equal to 21 minus 3 is 18. And then to get x by itself, I'm multiplying x by negative 6. So I'm going to use the division property of equality. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 6. Negative 6 divided by negative 6 is 1. 1 times x is x. So I get x to be a negative 3. Okay? All right, and if you want to check that as well, check x equal negative 3. I'm not going to check all of them, but if you want to check that one, go back to the original problem. And wherever you see the variable x, you can substitute negative 3. So I get negative 3 times 2 times negative 3 minus 1. And I want to see that's going to equal to 21. Well, inside the parentheses, 2 times negative 3 is a negative 6, right? So negative 3 times negative 6 minus 1. Negative 6 and a negative 1 is a negative 7. And a negative 7 times a negative 3 is a positive 21. Okay, so that's number 2. All right, number 3. So that's number 3. So number 3, I have 8 equals 2 times x minus 5 plus 6x. So 2 times x minus 5 plus 6x. Just like you did before, you want to simplify both sides of the equation. So I do have parentheses. So let's go ahead and use the distributive property. All right, so you're going to multiply every term in here by this 2, because that's what you're doing. You're multiplying. It says 2 times. So I get 8 equals 2 times x is 2x. 2 times a negative 5 is a negative 10 plus 6x. All right. Now I want you to notice I can still simplify both sides. In this case, one side, because I can combine like terms. So I can combine like terms on this side. So 2x and 6x is 8x. So I get 8 equals 8x minus 10. So that's where I'm at. Okay? All right, and then to get x by itself, I'm going to first of all, when I'm subtracting 10, so the opposite is to add 10 to both sides using the addition property of equality. 8 plus 10 is 18, equal, and then this is 0, you get 8x. And then to get x by itself, you can divide both sides by 8, right? And so I get 8 divided by 8 is 1, so I get x to be 18 divided by 8. Now, make sure you reduce this. Don't leave it as 18 divided by 8. It's easy for you to see that this is reducible. They're both divisible by 2. So you're going to say x equal 18 divided by 2 is 9, and then 8 divided by 2 is 4. So you get 9/4. Now, if you want to write this as a mixed number, you can. So you can say x equal 4 divided into 9 is 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8. Remainder 1. So you get 2 and 1/4. 2 and 1/4. Okay? All right. So notice first thing I did was the distributive property, right? Distributive property. That's the first thing I did. Then I noticed I could combine like terms. So combine like terms. So this right here, if I want you to notice, I do want you to notice that these two was step 1. So step 1, I clear the parentheses, and then I combine like terms. Okay, and then the rest was using the addition property of equality. And then so this was the addition property of equality. And then this was the division property of equality. Okay? All right, and so that was number 3. Not difficult at all. Very easy to deal with. Okay, number 4, we have 4 plus 3 times x plus 2 is equal to 10. So 4 plus 3 times x plus 2 is equal to 10. Now, remember, I do want you to realize that there is a common mistake people make here, students make here, because of the way it looks. But according to the order of operations, see, this says 4 plus 3 times. So according to the order of operations, you got to do multiplication first. So that's why it's very important that if you have parentheses, you use the distributive property first. So if you said 4 plus 3 is 7 and then distribute, that's incorrect. So this is incorrect. So you gotta be careful. Don't say 4 plus 3 is 7 and then distribute. That's incorrect. So this is not true. You have to distribute the 3 first. Okay? Distribute the 3 first. So if you do 4 plus 3 first, then the answer you get is not the solution to this. All right. So 4 plus, and then 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 2 is 6, equal 10. All right. Then once you clear the parentheses, sometimes you're going to be able to combine like terms. So let's combine like terms. 3x, these two are alike. The constants are alike. 4 plus 6 is 10. So I get 3x plus 10 equal 10, right? Then subtract 10 from both sides. I want you to notice something. These become 0, so you get 3x equal 10 minus 10 is itself 0, right? So notice you get 3x equals 0 here. And then divide both sides by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 1 times x is x. You have to know that 0 divided by 3 is 0. Don't leave it at 0 divided by 3. If you do that, it kind of implies that you don't know what this really is. So 0 divided by 3 is 0, and 0 is your solution. That's your solution. And so if you check it, if you go ahead and check x equals 0, you'll see that that's a solution. And we go back to the original problem. So 4 plus 3 times 0 plus 2, and you want to see that's equal to 10. Well, 0 plus 2 is 2, so this becomes 4 plus 3 times 2, right? 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 plus 4 is indeed equal to 10. All right, so that's number 4. All right, let's look at number 5. All right, number 5, we have this, number 5. Okay, so number 5, we have 10 minus 5x equals 3 times x minus 4 minus 2 times x plus 7. All right, so we have a lot of parentheses. We have 2 parentheses here. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is distributive property. Get rid of the parentheses first. So I'm going to distribute the 3 here, and I'm going to distribute the negative 2 here. Okay, negative 2. So I get 10 minus 5x equal 3 times x is 3x. 3 times a negative 4 is a negative 12. A negative 2 times x is a negative 2x, and a negative 2 times 7 is a negative 14. See all that? Okay, 3 times x, 3 times negative 4 is negative 12, negative 2 times x is negative 2x, and negative 2 times 7 is negative 14. Okay? Then we're going to combine like terms. Combine like terms. So there are no terms that are like over here, but there are some here. So 3x minus 2x is x, right? A negative 12 and a negative 14. A negative 12 and a negative 14 is a negative 26. On this side, I have 10 minus 5x. So that's where I'm at. All right. So to solve this linear equation, we're now going to do steps 2 and 3. So we're going to bring all the variables to one side, constants to the other. So let's subtract x from both sides, just like this. And then combine like terms, I have 10. A negative 5x and a negative 1x is a negative 6x. Equal, this is 0, x minus x is 0, and you're left with negative 26. Then subtracting 10 from both sides, just like this. 10 minus 10 is 0. 0 and a negative 6x is a negative 6x equal a negative 26 and a negative 10 is a negative 36. And then dividing both sides by negative 6 using the division property of equality. Negative 6 divided by negative 6 is 1. 1 times x is x. A negative 36 divided by negative 6 is a positive 6. So that's your solution. So the value of x that makes this equation a true statement is when x is 6. All right, so that's number 5. All right, let's look at number 6. So number 6, you have 3 times 5 minus x minus 2 times 5 plus x is equal to 3 times x plus 1. All right, so notice you have how many sets of parentheses do you see? You see how many sets? You see 1, 2, 3, right? So you're going to use the distributive property 3 times. Here, here, and here. Okay? Distributive property. So 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times a negative x is a negative 3x. A negative 2 times 5 is a negative 10. A negative 2 times x is a negative 2x equal 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 1 is a positive 3. Okay, so that's where we're at. Then combining like terms on this side, there are no like terms here, but there are here. Let's do the x's first. A negative 3x and a negative 2x. All right, so notice that the signs are the same, right? So look at their coefficients. So negative 3 plus a negative 2, that's what that says, equals negative 5. All right? So that's a negative 5x. 15 subtract 10 is 5. So this side simplifies to negative 5x plus 5 equal 3x plus 3. All right, and so now we're going to do steps 2 and 3. So let's bring the variables to the left side. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 3x on both sides. You're not going to add 3x. Adding 3x isn't going to help you. 3x plus 3x is 6x. That's not going to help. So you want to subtract 3x from both sides. Combining like terms, negative 5x and a negative 3x is a negative 8x plus 5 equal 3x minus 3x is 0, and 0 plus 3 is 3. All right, subtract 5 from both sides. 5 subtract 5 is 0, so you get negative 8x equals 3 minus 5 is a negative 2. Then remember trying to get x by itself. So now you're going to divide both sides by negative 8, just like this. Negative 8 divided by negative 8 is 1. 1 times x is x, so x equals. Now you are expected to know, you have to know this, you are expected to know that a negative divided by negative is a positive. And you're expected to know that 2 eighths reduced is 1/4. So that's your answer, 1/4. Not 4. Don't say 4, because 1/4 and 4 are not the same thing. 2 divided by 8 is 1/4. Okay? So there's your solution. So that's a solution. All right, so that's number 6. All right? Okay, so let's look at number 7. So in number 7, we have this. In number 7, we have this. It looks like this, so let me explain that a little bit further. All right. So in the previous problems, and let me see if I can find one. In problem number 2, remember problem number 2? You had a negative coefficient here, a negative number, and you attributed the negative 3, right? So in this case, though, you don't see a number there, but it's implied, just like you've learned before, it's implied to be a 1. So if you need to rewrite this as -1, if you have to, okay? And so we're going to distribute the -1. So using distributive property first. But keep in mind that this right here can be read as this. You can read this as saying taking the opposite of each term. So the opposite of 2x is a -2x, and the opposite of a -1 is a +1. So when you distribute the -1, you get the same thing. -1 times 2x is a -2x. A -1 times a -1 is a +1, equal 3x plus 5. All right? And so now let's go ahead and bring the variables to one side, constants to the other. So we're going to have to subtract 3x from both sides here. And then if I combine like terms, a -2x and a -3x is a -5x plus 1 equal, this is 0, 3x and -3x is 0, and you're left with 5. All right, to get the variable term by itself, right now I'm adding 1. The opposite is to subtract 1. Combine like terms, 1 and a -1 is 0. Those are opposites. So I get -5x is equal to, and then 5 minus 1 is 4. And then to get x by itself, right now I'm multiplying by -5. The opposite is divide by -5, just like this. -5 divided by -5 is 1. 1 times x is x. So you get x to be a positive divided by negative is a negative, so you get -4/5. And there's nothing else you can do with that. That is a that's reduced, and it's a proper fraction, so you're done. Okay, so that's number 7. All right, let's look at number 8. So in number 8, we have this. We have 8 minus, in parentheses, y plus 2 plus 3y equal 7y minus 2 times y minus 3 minus 7. All right, looks pretty long, right? But it's not that difficult, just using all your steps. So everything that you just learned, you're going to use here. Not difficult at all. All right. So again, you may want to see there's no number there, so you may want to rewrite this as a -1 if you want to. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Just look like this. Okay? It's up to you. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this whole thing over. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and use the distributive property. So everything inside this parentheses we multiply by -1. Now be careful though. Don't say 8 minus 1 is 7. Okay, you got to be careful. The only thing the only thing that this y plus 2 is being multiplied by is this -1. Okay, so I get 8. A -1 times y is a -y. A -1 times 2 is a -2 plus 3y equal, and then distribute the -2 here, so I get 7y. A -2 times y is a -2y. A -2 times a -3 is a +6, and then minus 7. So that's where we're at. Not difficult at all. Fairly easy, right? Fairly easy. Okay, so now combine like terms. In fact, I can combine like terms in all parts here. So you see that we're still dealing with step number 1. So first thing I did was use the distributive property, and now I'm going to combine like terms. So when I combine like terms here, let's deal with the variable terms first. A -1y and a 3y is a 2y. 8 and a -2, 8 subtract 2 is 6. So this becomes 2y plus 6. Equal. Over here, 7, these two are alike. 7 minus 2y is 5y. And then 6 and a negative 7, or 6 subtract 7, is a negative 1. All right, so that's what I get. And so now I'm going to bring all the variables to the left, constants to the right. And it doesn't matter. You could bring the variables to the right if you want to. It does not matter. It's up to you. But I'm just go ahead and subtract 5y from both sides. And so I get 2y minus 5y is 3y. So I get 3y plus 6 equal 5y minus 5y is 0, 0, and a negative 1 is a negative 1. Okay, getting the 3y by itself, you're going to subtract 6 from both sides. Right now you're adding 6, so the opposite is subtract 6. And you know you're doing this correctly when you combine like terms. This is 0 right here. Okay, so I get 3y equal negative 1 and negative 6 and negative 7. Divide both sides by 3. I get 3 divided by 3 is 1. 1 times y is y. So I get y to be negative 7/3. And then you cannot reduce, but if you want to, you can write this improper fraction as a mixed number. 3 divided by 7 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. Remainder 1. So you get 2, negative 2, and 1/3. Okay? So either one's fine. So that's the solution to this equation right here. So the value of y that makes this equation a true statement is when y is negative 7/3. Okay, finally, let's do one more. So this is going to be number 9. Number 9. So number 9, let's suppose we had this. We had 4 times 2y minus 3 plus y equal 5y plus 2 minus y. All right. So we have to use the distributive property one time here. All right. Let's do that first. So 4 times 2y is 8y, right? 4 times a negative 3 is a negative 12, and then plus the y equal 5y plus 2 minus y. So the first thing I did was use the distributive property. Now we're going to, in still step 1, we're going to combine like terms. So when I combine like terms, 8y plus y is 9y. So these are alike. These are like terms. So that's 9y minus 12 equal 5y minus y is 4y plus 2. Okay? All right, so I'm going to bring all the variables to the left, constants to the right. So I'm going to subtract 4y from both sides, just like that. And 9y minus 4y is 5y when I combine like terms. So 5y minus 12 equal, this is 0, that's what you want. You want to bring all the variables to this side, and you're left with 2. Now adding 12 to both sides, I get 5y equal 17. And then divide both sides by 5, I get y to be 17 divided by 5. And so there's your answer. That's reducible. I mean, that's reduced. Now, if you want to, you can write this as a mixed number. You can write this improper fraction as a mixed number. 5 and a 17 is 3. 3 times 5 is 15 with remainder 2. So you get 3 and 2 fifths. Okay? 3 and 2 fifths. And so that's the solution to this equation, is 17 fifths. Okay, so that is solving linear equations where we have to use the distributive property. So that's the end of this lesson.